welcome to this week's Wildlife Matters podcast. I'm your host, Nigel Palmer. And this week's show features part 2 of our introduction to British Corvids, where we will look at the 3 native Corvids that are their own genus: the captivating Chough, the magnificent Magpie, and the jolly jay. And in this week's Mindful Moments in Nature, we feature a native mammal who should be deep in hibernation in January. But Wildlife Matters was so excited to be able to record them at a secret location last spring. Despite the unsettling events in the world, our love for wildlife and the natural world fuels our commitment to conservation. Although we may feel frustrated at times, our dedication remains unwavering, both here in the UK and wherever we can make a difference to wildlife and nature around the world. Whilst the challenges we all face are immense, our decades of experience have taught us to believe in the power of collaboration and the people's will. This belief keeps us focused on achieving positive outcomes for wildlife and nature in all our current and future work, instilling hope for a better future. This week's Wildlife Matters Nature News reflects on some of the issues we face as we follow the heartbreaking story of Abby, a former hunting dog from Spain, who is now fronting a campaign to end hunting with dogs in Spain. Abby's story resonates with us at Wildlife Matters as it highlights the global impact of hunting on wildlife and the immense suffering of the dogs involved. We also followed the story of a fox caught in an illegal snare in Scotland and the successful prosecution of the gamekeeper who set it, before we head off to Norfolk to find out how bats have caused Norfolk County Council to abandon their plans for a new bypass. So, without any further delay, let's head over to our news desk for this week's Wildlife Matters Nature News. Hello and welcome to this week's Wildlife Matters Nature News. And this week's first story is a tragic one of Abby and her fellow Spanish hunting dogs. Abby, a former Spanish hunting dog, was found abandoned after losing her sight with a broken toe and a ligature mark around her neck. Veterinarians confirmed after initial inspection that in addition to being blind, Abby had 2 hernias, oral hematomas, a broken toe, and the ligature mark around her neck. More than 100 rescue and animal rights advocates will now demonstrate at Glasgow Green on Saturday, February the 1st, to raise awareness of the pain and suffering of animals like Abby, who has thankfully found a second chance of life in Scotland. On the same day, animal rights protesters will march through Manchester and central London to the Spanish embassy, demanding an end to hunting with dogs in Spain, usually involving Podenco and the Galgos breeds. Abby is front and centre of the campaign and was rescued after being abandoned once she was unable to work. Through 6 months of intensive operations and rehabilitation, she fought for her health and a second chance at life. And she continues to make the most of every day and has recently climbed Conic Hill by Loch Lomond. In 2022, she won a public vote to be the face of the Dog Lover Show. February 1st marks the end of Spain's hunting season, when dogs will be deemed unfit for hunting and simply discarded. Many of these dogs are treated with extreme cruelty after their lifetime, and the ways of killing unwanted dogs are callous and often designed to extend their suffering. In 2023, the Spanish Parliament excluded hunting dogs from Spain's new animal welfare law. In response, Free Spanish Hounds, a UK-based volunteer organisation, was formed that year to raise awareness and stand in solidarity with the Spanish advocacy group Plataforma NAC. The UK marches are part of a coordinated effort that includes similar peaceful protests in 48 Spanish cities and 29 other cities across Europe. These protests amplify the voices of those fighting to end the barbaric practice. Teresa Rodriguez, who organises NAC's international protest, told Wildlife Matters, "By raising awareness of our plight globally, we aim to encourage visitors to Spain to protest against these practices and create diplomatic pressure on the Spanish administration." This approach has succeeded when European politicians called for action following our demonstrations at the European Parliament in Strasbourg. With the support of the international community, including the peaceful protest in London, Glasgow and Manchester on the 1st of February, we remain committed to driving meaningful change and ensuring better protection for these dogs. Abva Shimshai, one of the founders of Free Spanish Hounds, said, "We will continue to protest in the UK and be the voice of these dogs until the Spanish government takes decisive action to end hunting with dogs and ensure the protection that the dogs so desperately need. Together, we stand for a future free from cruelty and neglect." Today's second story on Wildlife Matters Nature News is one of a gamekeeper who has been fined after pleading guilty to illegally snaring a fox. A gamekeeper has been fined and ordered to pay a surcharge for illegally snaring a fox. Thomas Ebner, 74, from Reeston in the Scottish Borders, pleaded guilty to setting a snare that could cause unnecessary suffering to any animal that came into contact with it. The snare was located on land belonging to Old Castle's farm in Churnside. Fox was caught by the neck and partially suspended on a broken fence line. Ebner was sentenced at Selkirk Sheriff's Court. Sheriff Patterson told Ebner, "This is a breach of the Act and you knew what you were doing and the fox was caused suffering. But I have to take into account that you have no previous convictions and you pleaded guilty." The gamekeeper was fined £1,250 plus a £75 surcharge. A Scottish SPCA inspector from the Special Investigations Unit told Wildlife Matters the fox was caught in a snare along a broken fence line. It was seen by members of the public jumping through the fence in considerable distress and foaming at the mouth. The snare was wrapped around a fence post and was bloodstained. A member of the public was able to free the fox from the snare. This snare was set in a way that caused suffering to the fox. There was a significant risk of it becoming entangled in the fence, which could have led to strangulation. It is clear that the fox was experiencing both mental and physical distress. The animal was also at further risk of injury from surrounding barbed wire and broken wood. The snare was set by an individual who had attended an official snare training course where they were taught the correct way to set snares. This is yet another example of the cruel impact snares can have on animal welfare and the unnecessary suffering that they cause. We welcome a ban on snares and implemented by the Scottish Government. A ban on snares was enacted in March 2024 as part of the Wildlife Management and Muirburn Scotland Act. The inspector continued, "We have also been given additional investigative powers to tackle wildlife crime. These powers allow our inspectors, who are already investigating animal welfare offences, to search, examine and seize evidence." The bill includes various measures to protect wildlife, such as a ban on all forms of snares and glue traps. Wildlife Matters has long called for an outright ban on snares due to the suffering they inflict on animals, whether used legally or illegally. Animals caught in snares can endure unimaginable physical and mental anguish. Snares are non-selective and can harm both domestic and non-target. animals. Our third story takes us to Norfolk, where plans for a link road have been withdrawn due to concerns about bats. Norfolk County Council was seeking approval from the government to build a £274 million Norwich Western Link Road. However, last year the project's future was in doubt because Natural England's changed rules protecting the rare Barbastell bats on the proposed road's route. Conservative councillor Graham Plant said that the road remained a priority project, but the council could not resolve the issue and withdrew its planning application. The 3.9 mile or 6.2 kilometre Norwich Western Link, which had been planned for years, would connect the Northern Distributor Road, the NDR, to the A47. The County Council said that the road would cut traffic congestion, reduce journey times and improve air quality in the local community. However, opponents suggested that it would badly damage the environment in the Wensum Valley and encourage more car use. Brian Watkins, leader of the Liberal Democrats, said the roadwork had already left the council millions of pounds out of pocket. Labour's Steve Morphew said the scheme was clearly flawed and that the council had been warned time and time again that questions over its viability had been raised. And the Greens' Jamie Osborne said the application withdrawal was the final nail in the coffin for the planned road. DEFRA declined to comment to Wildlife Matters and in fact referred us to Natural England, where James Marshall, Natural England's Deputy Director for Norfolk and Suffolk, said Natural England was clear that development and nature can go hand in hand, but he said Barbastell bats were incredibly rare and that the proposed route would destroy one of the largest remaining populations in the UK. We have worked closely with Norfolk County Council for more than 4 years on the proposed Norwich Western Link Road and consistently advised on our significant concerns, he said. The Department of Transport spokesman said we will continue to work with Norfolk County Council on measures to improve congestion in the area. And that has been this week's Wildlife Matters Nature News. With so much pressure on wildlife and the natural world right now, it is more important than ever to remain within nature, which is where we genuinely belong. Nature is a natural healer for our physical and mental well-being. Wildlife Matters has long advocated that spending time in nature is essential for good physical and psychological health and can be vital for those who live with or are recovering from physical or mental problems. Last spring, Wildlife Matters was fortunate to join a small team that spent several nights surveying a secret location for bats. We took our sound equipment and hired some very clever high-tech equipment so we can record something truly amazing for you. Something that is beyond the range of human hearing. So, if it's safe to do so, stop whatever you're doing, be still and be silent for a minute or two and enjoy the incredible sound of bats leaving their roost to go foraging at dusk. On this week's Wildlife Matters Mindful Moments. We hope you enjoyed that unique audio immersion into the world of bats. What an incredible experience. I stood at the roost entrance with my parabolic microphone and a backpack full of techie equipment, but I couldn't hear the bats. I could feel them as they flew close by me, so close that I'm sure I could hear the sound of their wings. But otherwise, I was stood in complete silence. Now, I'm sure you can imagine how I felt when I heard the audio that we have just shared with you. Bats have always held a special place in my heart. From childhood evenings spent in our neighbour's orchard watching the pipistrelles at dusk, to the breathtaking sight of barbastels skimming the lake's surface as I sat in my kayak. Bats have never failed to captivate me. So it has been an absolute pleasure to share this unique audio experience with you on this week's Wildlife Matters Mindful Moments. And now it's time to join me for part 2 of Wildlife Matters Introduction to British Corvids in this week's Wildlife Matters main feature. Hello and welcome to this week's Wildlife Matters main feature. And in part 2 of our introduction to the Corvids of Britain, we focus on the 3 Corvid species, all belonging to different genera. And today we'll uncover the distinct features and behaviours of the chough, the magpie and the jay, 3 Corvid species that stand out in the avian world. The chough is also known as the red-billed chough. It's a bird species in the Pyrrhocorax genus. It stands out with its unique characteristics, such as its distinctive red bill and legs, and its impressive acrobatic flights around seaside cliffs, often in flocks. The other species in this genus is the alpine or yellow-billed chough. But here in the British Isles, the chough is found in Wales, Cornwall and the Isle of Man, parts of western Scotland and Ireland. Unfortunately, changes in livestock management and persecution have led to a decline in their populations, and they became extinct over much of England. The chough's scientific name, Pyrrhocorax, is an example of a tautonym where the genus and the specific name are the same. This non-migratory resident is the least common member of the crow family here in Britain and is also known as the Cornish chough. The adults have similar appearances. Both have glossy black plumage with blue-green sheen. They also have striking red legs and a long, tapered, slightly curved bill. Their eyes are black and they have large, square wings and a square tail. They are slightly larger than jackdaws. Juvenile plumage has a matte look compared to the adults, with a pale orange-red bill and orange-red legs. Choughs enjoy feeding from old coastal pastures, digging up earthworms, beetles, ants, and other readily available insects and invertebrates, using their purpose-designed bill to probe deep into the soil. They will also take small mollusks and lichen. Choughs are found throughout southern Europe and beyond. However, they have only recently been reintroduced to remote locations in the far west of Wales, the far west of Scotland, and Cornwall. Choughs do favour sea caves, ruined buildings or holes, and fissures on cliff faces to nest in. They tend to inhabit mountain areas or high coastal cliffs. According to Cornish legend, King Arthur was transformed into a chough on his deathbed, hence the bird's red bill and legs. Cornwall's county crest features a single chough, and in the 1960s, the coat of arms for the Duchy of Cornwall incorporated 2 choughs facing each other. Choughs often fly in pairs or small flocks, soaring and diving around cliff edges, and they are both graceful and agile. The fingers of their primary wing feathers are easy to spot from the ground as they cavort overhead in an endless exhibition of aerobatic manoeuvring. Their nests can be bulky. They're made of sticks, roots, heather, and other plants, and lined with hair and sheep's wool. One brood of 3 to 5 white eggs with brown or grey blotches is produced between May and July each year. The second corvid species we're going to look at today is the Eurasian magpie, scientific name pica pica. The magpie, also known as the common magpie, is a distinctive bird native to the British Isles. It is the only magpie species found in this region, with the Iberian magpie being the only other magpie species found in Europe. The magpie has a pied plumage of black and white, blue wings and a long tail, which makes it easily identifiable. The scientific name pica pica is an example of a tautonym, where the genus and the specific name are the same. The magpie is a long-tailed corvid with stunning black and white plumage, making it more striking than many of their other crow species. It is also one of the most intelligent birds in the world, a fact that often surprises and impresses bird enthusiasts. It is often associated with various superstitions, adding to its mystique. Magpies are around the size of a dove, with their large diamond-shaped tails making up about half of their total body length. They weigh between 160 and up to around 250 grams, with females generally being lighter than the males. Adult wingspans do vary between 52 and around 60 centimetres. Juvenile magpies resemble adults, but they have shorter tails and a duller plumage without the iridescent gloss. These unmistakable birds have black heads, backs and chests with pure white underparts and large patches above and below each wing. Males and females are difficult to distinguish, although the females are slightly smaller. Magpies are classified as songbirds, although their calls may not be as pleasant to the ear as many. However, they have a remarkable vocal range and can produce such a wide variety of calls, including warbling and mimicry. Magpies are omnivores and rely heavily on live and dead animals as their primary food source. They are intelligent and opportunistic scavengers and hunters who mostly scavenge on the ground. They will also raid nests and occasionally catch flying prey. Their diet includes beetles, insects, rodents, frogs, reptiles, eggs, nestlings, small adult birds, roadkill, fruit, berries, and seeds. During times of abundance, magpies demonstrate an exciting behaviour called caching. They bury excess food around their territory to consume when food is scarce. Baby magpies feed on insects and other soft foods, such as meat scraps. Both the male and female magpies take part in feeding their young, although the males usually provide more food. Magpies are common in the UK. You can easily spot them near your home. They have an extensive global distribution too, including virtually all of Europe and extending through Asia to North Korea and Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula. Magpies are habitat generalists, at home in gardens, parks and farmland, and of course in urban areas, a real testament to their adaptability. However, they avoid treeless landscapes and dense forests, showing their preference for a more varied environment. When foraging for food, magpies walk or run along the ground, but they spend most of their time perched on buildings, walls, trees, and other structures safe from terrestrial predators. Their feet have 3 toes pointing forwards and 1 pointing backwards, giving them a distinctive, uneven, jerky motion when they're walking. You have a good chance of seeing magpies near your home wherever you live in the United Kingdom. Listen out for their loud chattering call to locate these intelligent birds. Magpies' short, rounded wings in flight show large white panels on the hand. They flutter when on the straight course, with occasional sweeping glides. And when on the ground, they make strong bounds while the tail jerks up and down. Magpies carry a confident, almost arrogant air about them. They sometimes gather in noisy flocks that can be from 5 to about 25 birds, and that is known as a magpie parliament. And in winter, they may roost in larger flocks containing up to 300 individual birds. The average lifespan of a magpie is 3 to 5 years, but some can live for more than 20 years. Now, despite their bold nature, magpies still face threats from predators such as domestic cats and foxes. Birds of prey such as female sparrowhawks and tawny owls are also known to hunt magpies. Magpies are protected under the Wildlife and Countryside Act of 1981. There are around 650,000 magpies in the United Kingdom, and they have a green conservation status, which means they are classified as of least concern. Magpies prepare their nests in winter, although they only lay eggs in April. They build their nests in trees or thorny vegetation to protect themselves from predators. Building their large dome-shaped nests can take several weeks, and male and female magpies are involved in the construction. Magpies usually lay between 5 and 7 eggs, which are blue-green and speckled. Each egg is around 35 millimeters long and 24 millimeters wide. Magpie pairs mate for life and they form a close bond. They will stay together even during the non-breeding season when they may join larger flocks. Despite this, magpies are not the most popular in the UK, partly because of their cheeky nature and their tendency to raid other birds' nests. Magpies can be very aggressive towards each other during the breeding season. They will call and perch in prominent positions to warn off intruders. However, if these warnings are ignored, territorial pairs may resort to physical violence. Magpies are also known to act aggressively towards other birds such as gulls and sparrowhawks. They may even harass other animals such as squirrels sometimes. Additionally, they can dominate other birds at bird tables, especially if meaty foods are available. During the breeding season, magpies sleep near their nests. In the winter, they often roost in large communal flocks. Sometimes up to 1,700 individuals have been recorded in Europe. Magpies are present in the United Kingdom throughout the year, even on the coldest of winter days. Although they will travel longer distances to avoid extreme weather elsewhere in Europe and Asia, they are generally sedentary and usually spend their lives within a radius of a few kilometres. Therefore, they are not considered as migrants. According to an old magpie nursery rhyme, a single magpie is an omen of bad luck, whilst 2 magpies signify joy. Some superstitious individuals still resort to amusing antics like saluting the birds and calling out "Good morning, Mr. or Mrs. Magpie" to prevent any misfortune. Magpies are intelligent birds that generally regard humans as a potential threat. A study suggested that they can recognize individual human faces and will respond negatively towards people who have previously threatened their nests whilst ignoring other humans. They are one of just 3 known birds with this ability. Many bird lovers criticize magpies for their nest raiding habits. However, these birds are following their instincts and survival strategies. And there's no evidence that magpies reduce songbird numbers through predation, although they can deter more welcome birds from visiting our gardens. Magpies are shy and nervous birds. Wild individuals do not tame easily and will usually take off at the slightest hint of danger. And our third and the final corvid species we're looking at today is the Eurasian jay. The jay is a member of the crow family. It doesn't have the iridescent black coloration of other corvids, but it has a cinnamon body, black and white wings with an electric blue wing bar, a white rump, a black tail, and a pale streaked crown with a black moustache. Both the male and the female jays look alike, and juveniles have darker reddish-brown plumage and a bolder black barring on the blue wing patch. Although they have a mix of colours, jays are hard to spot because they are typically found in woodlands, where their plumage blends in beautifully. Jays are relatively shy and are known for caching food, especially acorns, to eat later. They usually bury them in autumn and retrieve them throughout the winter months. The jay is a medium-sized bird that is larger than a blackbird. It has a body length of around 35 centimetres, with well-developed legs, a medium-length tail and bill. Jays will weigh 140 up to around 200 grams, making them the smallest corvid in the UK, with a 52 to 58 centimetre wingspan. Jays have a surprising vocal range. Their typical call is a raucous, rasping screech, often produced when they are alarmed by predators or humans. But these intelligent birds can mimic other birds and even mammals, such as horses and cats. They frequently mimic the call of the buzzard, so take a closer look next time you hear the kia, kia, as it might just be a jay. Jays have a varied diet too, and their habit of storing food shows an impressive level of forward planning. Jays are opportunistic and omnivorous, although specific food sources dominate their diet. Various fruits and nuts, in addition to invertebrates, small mammals, birds' eggs, and nestlings are all on the jay's menu. Acorns are an essential component of their diet and are often cached to provide a food source in the winter. Jays are usually shy around humans, but can be found on garden bird tables where they will eat peanuts and suet. Baby jays rely on both parents to bring food back to the nest. Insects are the most crucial food source for the young, and these are collected nearby. Jay chicks fledge the nest after about 3 weeks, but may be fed for another 2 months or more before gaining their full independence. The range of the jay in the UK is extensive, with their population growing towards the north and the west. However, due to certain specific requirements, their habitat availability is limited. They can be found almost everywhere except in the high-lying areas of Scotland, northern England, and in some coastal areas on the east coast. The jay is a woodland species that prefers habitats with abundant oak and beech trees. They can also be found in our gardens, parks, and orchards. Jays live in well-wooded and forested areas. They spend most of their time in trees searching for insects and other food. They will occasionally come down to the ground to search for acorns and bury extra food under the leaf litter. The Eurasian jay is widely distributed throughout the northern hemisphere, ranging from Ireland in the west to Japan in the east. They can be found as far south as the southeast of Asia and the north of Africa. Jays are common in the United Kingdom but rarely seen outside woodland habitats. There are estimated to be 170,000 breeding pairs in the UK. As we've said, jays are shy and cautious birds. They are usually seen flying away from an observer, showing rounded wings and a striking black and white rump and tail pattern, whilst emitting a harsh alarm call. Their flight is characteristically bouncy. Although they may form small groups outside of the breeding season, they prefer a solitary existence. The jay's average life expectancy is around 4 years, although there are records of birds surviving between 16 to 18 years in the wild. Jays are vulnerable to predation from predators such as sparrowhawks, goshawks, and domestic cats. The Wildlife and Countryside Act of 1981 protects Eurasian jays in the United Kingdom. They are not considered endangered and are assessed as of least concern on the ICUN Red List. They have a green conservation status. Male jays typically choose the nest site in a coniferous or broad-leafed tree. They build the nest at the junction of the trunk and a giant branch, usually well hidden by foliage. They may also occasionally nest in vines, creepers, cavities, on buildings and larger nest boxes. Jays begin breeding in their second year. They nest in the spring and produce a single brood each year. Egg laying usually occurs in early to mid-May. Incubation takes 16 or 17 days and the young birds fledge the nest after 19 to 23 days. Jays in the UK typically will lay 4 or 5 olive green eggs with fine brown speckles. The average egg is approximately 30 millimeters long and around 23 millimeters wide. Like most corvids, jays mate for life and maintain a strong pair bond through courtship displays and mutual feeding. The males will observe their partners to determine their desired food. Jays are highly intelligent birds, known for their ability to mimic other species, store food for future needs, and provide their partners with their favourite food. They belong to the corvid family, which is known for its intelligence. During the breeding season, jays are territorial and can be aggressive towards other birds. They will chase their offspring away before they begin to nest in the following year and may even resort to physical conflict if necessary. However, compared to their American counterparts, jays in the UK are not actually known for their aggression. Jays play a crucial role in shaping the natural environment and creating habitats they require by planting oak trees. During autumn, they are said to bury over 2,000 acorns, many of which germinate. And by transporting acorns into fields, jays can regenerate woodland edges that human activities like farming have destroyed. Jays are generally resident throughout the year and rarely move long distances. However, continental birds from northern Europe may form considerable flocks in years when acorns are scarce and migrate to neighbouring regions, including the United Kingdom. They are native to the UK and have been recorded for hundreds of years, even in the works of William Shakespeare. Jays and magpies belong to the Corvidae family, but are not the same bird. Magpies are pied, long-tailed birds from the Pica genus, whilst jays are smaller, colourful species from the Garrulus genus. Despite their woodland heritage, jays can be seen in London's parks and gardens. They are more habituated to our presence and may be bolder and more accessible to observe than their wilder relatives. We hope you've enjoyed Wildlife Matters Guide to the Corvids of Britain. Please listen to part 1 to learn more about the raven, the rook, hooded and carrion crows, and the jackdaws. Here at Wildlife Matters, we are huge fans of corvids and will bring you in-depth studies on each of these captivating corvids, including some field studies in future episodes. And that has been this week's Wildlife Matters main feature. Well, I hope you've enjoyed learning more about the charismatic corvids that call the British Isles home. One of the main reasons for making this podcast is to educate, engage and entertain as we share our experiences and lifelong passion for wildlife and the natural world. To have one episode with corvids and bats is a dream for me. They are two of the most fascinating and captivating species here in the UK. Yet both are hugely underappreciated and often feared and persecuted. Do let us know your favourite plant or animal species and let's see if we can share an episode. It would be fantastic if you could share your knowledge about your passion on this podcast. Please do get in touch. Our email address is hello@wildlife-matters.org. That's hello@wildlife-matters.org. I want to say thank you to everyone who left us a comment on last week's part 1 of our Corvid double episode, and those of you who are still discovering our nature storytelling in the Christmas special. We do read all of your comments on our social media channels, and I try to reply to as many as possible. And following on from your feedback, I've decided to share more nature-based folklore stories. So please do subscribe to the Wildlife Matters podcast so you never miss an episode. And be sure to join us around the campfire on the equinoxes and solstices throughout the year. We'll be beginning with the spring equinox storytelling special in March. We do appreciate you choosing to spend your time with us today. Thank you for being here. Now, please do share this podcast with colleagues, friends and family, or anyone else you think may enjoy it. Wildlife Matters is a proudly independent podcast, and we want to keep it ad-free. But it's not free to produce. So please, if you can, support us on our website's Ways to Help page. Our web address is in the show notes and you will find us on your search engine of choice. But for those with a pen and paper, our website address is www.wildlife-matters.org. That's www.wildlife-matters.org. And Wildlife Matters will return in 2 weeks' time with a special called The Amazing Ways Animals Find a Mate. Yes, it's our Valentine's Day special and it's full of fun, fascinating facts about love. Don't miss it, wild ones. I have been your host, Nigel Palmer, and this is Wildlife Matters signing off.